Hi guys, I'm Erik Voss, and a lot of you have been asking about Fantastic Beasts and where to find them. And even though I grew up obsessing over all the Harry Potter books and films, I walked into this movie blind, expecting it to be this small story about one of the 3 Hufflepuffs anyone ever gave a crap about, playing Pokemon Go with magical animals for 2 hours.
I think your egg is hatching.
Turns out, not the case. There is way more going on with this movie, with multiple interweaving storylines, tying this story into the main Harry Potter timeline, and delving deep into the whole mythology of the wizarding world.
Fenestra.
And if you walked out of this movie with a few questions, don't worry, I couldn't understand most of Eddie Redmayne's mumblecore either.
He senses danger.
So in this video, I'm going to clear up all the big mysteries and point out how, if you watch closely enough, this movie sneakily set up all the answers to this stuff. And obviously, I'm about to spoil this entire movie. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it and come back here. I will not obliviate you. I can, but I won't. This is on you. Okay, let's get started with the first big question. What is going on with Graves and Grindelwald? So the biggest twist of the movie comes at the end, when Colin Farrell's character, Percival Graves, the American Auror who investigates Newt and the Obscurus crisis, who's got his own mysterious ulterior motives, is revealed to be the evil wizard Gellert Grindelwald in disguise, played by Johnny Depp. Now, a lot of people saw this moment and were like, what the hell? What is Jack Sparrow doing in this movie? Did Graves ever really exist? Is Colin Farrell actually Johnny Depp? Am I actually Johnny Depp? All right, let's break this down one step at a time. For starters, no, you're not Johnny Depp unless you are Johnny Depp, in which case it's pretty cool you're watching these videos. Now, is it hard to use like a mouse with all those rings and bracelets getting in the way? Okay, so who is Grindelwald? All right, quick refresher here. Grindelwald is a dark wizard who precedes the Harry Potter series. He was friends with Albus Dumbledore when they were kids. Some even think they might have been more than friends, and they would get in debates over whether wizards were superior to muggles, and eventually that split them apart, leading to this nasty fight where a curse ricocheted and killed Dumbledore's sister, Ariana. I'll talk more about her later. Grindelwald's philosophy was that wizards were the superior race, and that extremes should be taken for the greater good, like killing and imprisoning a ton of people. Basically, he's like Wizard Hitler, which is also what you call someone with like a really small but really long mustache. Dumbledore and Grindelwald met again in 1945, when Dumbledore defeated him in a famous duel. It's considered to be the most epic showdown in the history of magic. And Grindelwald was left to rot in one of the prisons that he built, before later getting killed by Voldemort, who is in search of the Elder Wand. Now, why is the Elder Wand important to all this? So we learn in book 7 that the Elder Wand is the most powerful wand on Earth. It's one of the 3 Deathly Hallows, and Grindelwald stole it from the wand maker Gregorovitch, then lost it in the duel to Dumbledore, who then lost it to Draco Malfoy, who lost it to Harry Potter, who then reclaimed it after defeating Voldemort. Whew. So basically the Sisterhood of the Traveling Wand. But in this movie, Grindelwald does not yet possess the Elder Wand. The wand that we see Graves use is not the same knotted wand that we saw Dumbledore use in the other movies that was revealed, of course, to be the Elder Wand. So Grindelwald hasn't yet stolen it in this timeline, and if he had, he would have been able to kill like way more people, probably wouldn't need to stay in hiding like this. And many people think that the reason Grindelwald is in America in this movie is to find that wand. But let's be clear here, in this movie, Grindelwald's main goal is to pose as this top Auror, Percival Graves, to stir up trouble with the Obscurus, terrorizing the city of New York, to ignite a war between wizards and no-mages.
The no-magic.
The what?
No magic. The non-wizard.
Sorry, we call them muggles.
Justifying the mass slaughter of all of us normal people. Meanwhile, Percival Graves is a real Auror who works for MACUSA. That's the American version of the Ministry of Magic. So Grindelwald didn't create this whole fake identity and go undercover for decades to like slowly move up the ranks. That would be crazy, or just like really impressive commitment. No, it's more likely that Grindelwald is using Polyjuice Potion, like how Barty Crouch posed as Mad-Eye Moody in the Goblet of Fire. Or he could be using some other kind of identity hiding spell that we don't know about. And seeing how willing Grindelwald was to kill to cover his tracks, my guess is the real Graves is probably dead. Someone really should check his apartment. Now, once you understand this, Graves' sometimes confusing actions start to make a lot more sense. Like, yeah, it was super abrupt for Graves to sentence Newt and Tina to death, but it was a direct consequence of the moment before, when he accidentally let slip that the Obscurus is, quote, and Newt notices his disappointment. So this is all Grindelwald just covering his tracks. In fact, that moment was just one of the many clues throughout the movie that foreshadowed Graves' true identity. And here are the other ones that I caught. So first, the haircut. In the first scene of the movie, we see this reverse shot of the back of Grindelwald's head. And a few scenes later, we see the same shot showing the back of Graves' head with a similar haircut. And the director explained that there's a reason why they wanted this haircut in particular, because it was the same cut worn by members of the Hitler Youth in Germany. And they wanted Grindelwald's Prize to mirror the Nazis. Then we get this first establishing shot of Graves, and it's this menacing image of him posing in the frame of the Rebel with his cape flapping in the wind. But also, why does Graves go up through the second story when all the other investigators go through the ground level? I think it's because they wanted this shot to evoke the iconic image of Grindelwald from Deathly Hallows in the window frame as he stole the Elder Wand from Grigorovich. The next clue is Graves' weirdly extremist philosophy. So early in the film, Graves tells Credence, and this is clearly foreshadowing what we know to be Grindelwald's super philosophy, that wizards shouldn't have to hide in the shadows, that they should be out in the open as the dominant class in society. And using the Obscurious to start this war between wizards and humans is the most direct path to that new social order. And then later in the movie, Newt senses that Graves is trying to accuse him of being a follower of Grindelwald, and then he says,
Mass slaughter for the greater good, you mean?
and that particular phrasing strikes a chord with Graves, because the greater good is something that Grindelwald says all the time. And then of course the Deathly Hallows necklace, Graves gives it to Credence as a way to communicate, and this is really the smoking gun for Grindelwald. We know from book 7 that that is his mark. He's obsessed with finding the Deathly Hallows. And then we see his fighting skill, and this happened moments before we found out who he was anyway, but the way Graves takes on several auras at once, and if Newt hadn't surprised him, he probably would have killed all of them. Not many wizards are this powerful, and the look on Pickery's face suggests that she's already realizing who he is. And then there's lots of little shots throughout the film, such as when Pickery warns about war, and Graves' expression seems to be one of approval, signaling that this is actually what he wants. And then later, during the assembly at Macusa, Pickery accuses a delegate of letting Gellert Grindelwald slip through his fingers, and we immediately cut to a shot of Graves looking mysterious and brooding. And then, while interrogating Newt, Graves asks,
What makes Albus Dumbledore so fond of you?
and he pauses on Dumbledore's name, clearly thinking about their past friendship. Now, here's another big question people are asking about Grindelwald. What do his final words to Newt mean? As he's taken away, Grindelwald turns to Newt and he says, so this is super mysterious, and my first thought was that Grindelwald's just a huge fan of Faith Hill. But seriously, some people are saying this could be a reference to Grindelwald's desire to become new master over death by acquiring the Deathly Hallows, or maybe that he created a Horcrux, like Voldemort will, and that killing him will only make him die just a little. But I think there's a reason he says this to Newt in particular, and it's because he knows that Newt has a relationship with Dumbledore. So I predict that "will we die just a little" is a reference to a past exchange between Grindelwald and Dumbledore, and Newt will repeat this phrase to Dumbledore and we'll learn what it all means in the next movie. Which leads me to another question people are asking. What will happen in the sequels? So Fantastic Beasts is just the first of 5 planned movies for this franchise, and from what we can tell, the future of the series seems to be focused on Grindelwald and Dumbledore, specifically their inevitable famous showdown in 1945. And that explains why Johnny Depp was cast in the part, which confused a few of you. The producers specifically wanted an iconic actor with a history of playing mysterious, seductive, devilish characters, and someone who can carry a franchise. And rumor has it that they're in the process of casting an actor to play young Albus Dumbledore. But that brings up another question: will Newt Scamander be in the sequels? So even though Newt apparently won't be the main focus of the franchise, we know he will definitely appear at least in the next movie. And from reading the past Harry Potter books, Newt does live a long life. He's still alive in the present day, or at least through 2015. His grandson actually marries Luna Lovegood. But there are still more mysteries to Newt's story that it looks like the next movie will dig into. Specifically, what is Newt's connection to Leta Lestrange? So we learned from the scene where Queenie reads Newt's mind that he was close friends with Leta Lestrange when they were at Hogwarts together, and J.K. Rowling tweeted that Leta would be in the next movie. So who is she? Now remember, the Lestrange family has a history of dark wizards, like Rudolphus Lestrange, husband to Bellatrix Lestrange, and the two of them tortured Neville Longbottom's parents. But Newt says that both he and Leta were outsiders. That's how they got along. So my prediction is Leta has a love-hate relationship with her own evil family, like she's the rare white sheep of the Lestranges. We also learned from Graves' questioning that Newt got expelled from Hogwarts for endangering lives with a beast. But Rowling hinted that Newt was blamed for something that he didn't do.
He took the blame for something that someone else did.
So it seems like Newt took the fall for something that Leta might have done, which might be why Queenie called her a taker. It's pretty clear the next movie will answer these questions about Newt and Leta. Okay, let's move on to another question you guys had. Why is the Obscurus important in this story? So from a narrative standpoint, the Obscurus mystery is what brings Newt Scamander and Graves / Grindelwald together. As a magizoologist, Newt is the one who identifies the mysterious force as an Obscurus, the manifestation of a young wizard or witch's anxiety over suppressing their powers. And it's the old Obscurus Obscurus and Newt's collection that gets him briefly blamed for the crisis, and he knows how to approach Obscurials gently and talk them down. Meanwhile, Graves wants to locate the Obscurial and use the Obscurus to start a war, so the two of them end up being on opposite sides of that problem. But the reason J.K. Rowling put the concept of an Obscurus into this movie goes deeper than that. It's tied to the decision to set this story in America. So superstition and religious frenzy over witchcraft goes back to the early days of America, with the Salem witch trials, when women in colonial Massachusetts were accused of witchcraft and persecuted. Rowling created the idea of an Obscurus as a reflection of this dark, violent period in American history when abused and scared children would be forced to hide their magical powers. But also, Rowling frames Credence's Obscurus as a reflection of another recurring theme in her work, child abuse. So this isn't as clear in the movies, but in the books, especially the earlier ones, they really focus on Harry Potter's miserable life with the Dursleys and how they abuse him both verbally and with awful living conditions. And abuse toward children comes back throughout the series, with Dolores Umbridge using cruel corporal punishment in Order of the Phoenix, and the Carrows ordering the use of the Cruciatus curse on the first years in Deathly Hallows. Similarly, this movie doesn't shy away from Mrs. Barebone's physical abuse of Credence, and the Obscurus becomes a visual metaphor for Credence's inner turmoil and rage. And before I move on, a quick detail I liked about the Obscurus: before Credence, it was only known to affect children under the age of 10. And if you remember, 11 is the age most magical kids begin their education. Schools like Hogwarts would teach them how to channel and express and use their magical powers freely. So it makes sense that this would be a problem that would only affect kids who wouldn't have had a chance to learn to control their magic yet. And this brings up another theory people were asking about. Was Dumbledore's sister an Obscurial? So there's a chapter in Deathly Hallows when Dumbledore's brother Aberforth talked about how Albus's sister Ariana was attacked by a group of Muggle boys when she was 6, and it traumatized her into hiding her magic. And this exact description seems very interesting now. It destroyed her, what they did. She was never right again. She wouldn't use magic, but she couldn't get rid of it. It turned inward and drove her mad. It exploded out of her when she couldn't control it, and at times, she was strange and dangerous. That sounds a lot like Newt's description for Obscurials, and pretty much a character profile for Credence. Now, the big hang-up is that Ariana lived until she was 14, and all recorded incidents of Obscurials died by the age of 10, but if Ariana was still undiagnosed, this could be true. And I'm thinking Rowling might address this in future movies, like with Dumbledore and Grindelwald recalling this tragic history, or maybe she'll confirm it in an interview the way she outed Dumbledore.
Dumbledore being gay.
I thought you were going to ask something completely. Yeah, go on.
Now let's move on to another strange moment of the movie. Why is it okay that Newt and Tina get sentenced to die? To me, this is the biggest what the f moment of Fantastic Beasts, right? Like, Graves could just sentence Newt and Tina to die so quickly with no trial or jury, and MACUSA has this creepy execution room set up, and that no one stops to ask, how the hell is this legal? Now, here's how I look at this. For one, I think Graves may have just been acting unilaterally here, trying to kill Newt and Tina when they started to suspect something was off about him, and that President Pickery probably wouldn't have approved of this. But also, I think this movie is using this to show how dangerous of a wartime this is. So notice all the shots of this threat clock in the MACUSA lobby. A lot of people are just saying that this is a reference to the Weasley clock, but I think this has more historical significance. Like, it seems to be a combination of the nuclear clock, which expressed tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War, but also the color-coded terror alert system after 9/11. In both cases, civil liberties like the right to a fair trial or protection from cruel and unusual punishment were often suspended when it came to matters of national security. And by the way, a lot of you were wondering why the whole election subplot with the Shaw family is part of this story. This is all about reinforcing this context, with the magic-related death of a rising political star bringing these two worlds to the brink of war. And just to break down what we're seeing here, the process works like a pensieve, where positive memories are drawn from the person's mind and used to lure them into this death potion. That's like using old family photos to lure someone into an electric chair. Criminal justice in the wizarding world is super f***ed up, guys. Okay, one last question I want to talk about. Why can Kowalski still remember things at the end of the movie? So one of my favorite parts of this movie is the last scene when Kowalski has opened the bakery. The Fantastic Beasts he encountered with Newt have inspired pastries, and he has this vague recognition upon seeing Queenie. So why is he remembering these things? So the simple answer to this is that the venom from the swooping evil may have obliterated things from his conscious memory, but little details still hang around in his dreams and subconscious. That would be a sweet poetic justification. But this actually works on another more literal level too. So Newt uses his Thunderbird to create a rainstorm and spread the venom of the swooping evil over the city. And if you remember earlier in the film, he told Kowalski that it only washes away bad memories. So while everyone in the city only saw the bad side of magic as it like destroyed property and hurt people, Kowalski saw a nicer, less scary, more lovely aspect of magic. So all the other no-mages memories were totally cleared, but Kowalski forgot any of the scary moments and retained the nice parts, like the wonder of all these magical beasts and the love that he felt for Queenie. Okay, so those are the big mysteries I found interesting in Fantastic Beasts. Let me know if you have any other questions or theories of your own. Seriously, I love talking Harry Potter. I'm a huge Potterhead, and in case you were wondering, I was sorted into Ravenclaw and Thunderbird, my Patronus is a Black Stallion, and my wand is a Rowanwood with a dragon heartstring core, 13 inches and slightly springy flexibility, ladies. So if you like this video, please hit like and subscribe to New Rockstars and share this video with all your friends. Let's keep the discussion going, guys. Also, you can contribute to us on our Patreon page. Big thanks to all of our current patrons. You guys are the best. So you can hit me up on Twitter at EA Voss with any thoughts you had on Fantastic Beasts, or follow New Rockstars on Twitter for updates on our videos. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.